Welcome into a busy edition of Game Changers today. Mike Cunio, Kimbo Camper.
Mike, where'd you get that? That's a soft-looking shirt you got there, man. That's
careful throwing around the word soft. Okay, don't be mean.
Okay.
Don't be mean.
Just saying.
Just saying. We've also got Steve Goldstein joining the show now. Bo, I've got a bone to pick with you because 2 weeks ago you brought up two subjects out of the blue that I had not thought about in a long time.
Classic subjects, I'll have to say.
Classic Miami stories.
Yeah.
Elian Gonzalez and Bullygate.
Yeah.
And what do you know? You spoke one of them back into existence in Bullygate. Jonathan Martin this past week in an article with ESPN walked back some of the allegations of bullying.
I could feel it festering.
Yeah,
That's what
your ears were ringing or something. Goldie, sit tight because I know Bo's going to have a lot to say about this. But now that we have these comments from Jonathan Martin saying he wasn't bullied, you covered this subject extensively a few years ago. Yeah. Does it change your opinion about everything that happened, about the whole Bullygate situation?
No, because I knew exactly what happened. Yeah. I knew the circumstances. I knew enough of those characters in that locker room. Some of them I knew fairly intimately. And Richie was a pretty good friend of mine. We'd done a lot of stuff together, and so I kind of knew the nuts and bolts of it. And I also knew Jonathan Martin, coming from Stanford, and knew some guys that he played with, that he was a soft kind of a guy playing football. And at that point he wasn't comfortable. He was getting, he had a tough offensive line coach, and he was kind of beating him down a little bit, and he just couldn't take the pressure. And for as far as Richie's concerned, that guy's a tough guy. He's he's been a bulldog, was a bulldog his whole career, and his way of trying to get Martin out of that slump was to motivate him in the way he motivates him, by being tough, by talking stuff tough. But look, anybody in the locker room in that era and before, you got to have a strong composition to be in there, because it's vulgar, it's tough, and you got guys that are sitting in there in that locker room waiting to go out in the field for 3 hours and go with hand-to-hand combat. Yeah. And so you've got to have a stiff upper lip and a big disposition. Yeah. And obviously Jonathan Martin didn't quite have that.
Goldie, if you're on social media at all, it's going to be hard to miss Richie Incognito kind of taking a victory lap all these years later after all this comes out. But to me, there's no winner still in this situation. It still feels like a lot of people ended up on the losing end because of everything that happened. How do you see it?
100%. Richie Incognito is never getting that year and a half of salary back. I mean, that's what he lost. He was suspended for a year and then out for another year. And, look, the dynamic on that line, remember you had Mike Pouncey on there, you had John Jerry on there, and, they did that big report, all the text messages back and forth. As Bo said, that's the way Richie Incognito was brought up. That's the way he is. That's the way he was as a player. And I go back to who did the homework on the scouting when you talk to Jonathan Martin, when you talk to teammates of Jonathan Martin, when you talk to coaches of Jonathan Martin, and who came to the conclusion saying, you know what? Yeah, this is a guy that could handle the trenches of the NFL, because obviously he couldn't. And it's just a shame that Jonathan Martin, whether you want to blame him or not, he came out and he couldn't handle things, and he ended up, Richie Incognito's career was in jeopardy, and a number of other people. There were people fired over this thing. So it's a shame that that's what Jonathan Martin resorted to.
You know what, the other thing about it, Goldie, and you're right, there was a very good trainer, that Kevin O'Neill lost his job, an offensive line coach lost his job. There were a number of guys that lost their careers over this. But one of the things that was wrong, you had a lot of people that were nowhere near Miami pointing fingers. I know what's going on in there. I remember listening to Jason Whitlock, who was out in L.A., saying, that's a prison mentality in that locker room. And I'm sitting there going, I haven't seen Jason Whitlock in this locker room in 3 years, yet he's throwing out an opinion like that. And so that thing literally caught fire, and from all around the globe for the most part, and everyone was willing to throw their 2 cents in and put another log on the fire.
It was arguably the biggest story in sports that year. So Bo, Will you stop bringing up old stories now?
No, I won't. In fact, I got to tell you, in one of my restaurants, I put up all the pictures in one of my restaurants, and I've got a big 14 by 14 picture up on a wall, and it's Ryan Tannehill taking a snap. And everyone goes, "Hey, that's a picture of Ryan Tannehill." I go, "No, it's a picture of Richie Incognito because he's the guard." I put it up there during Bullygate and left it there. It's still there. I sent him a picture last week, and he says, "Hey, thanks for keeping it up."
Okay, well, at least we'll put this one to bed. Any other stories that Bo wants to rehash, I'm sure he'll sprinkle it in throughout the show later today. I'm not going to call it bullying, but I mean, the United States did rough up Canada in the Four Nations. We got to talk about this tournament. We're going to get to that next and what it's really doing in the world of sports. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Game Changers. Big round of applause for what the NHL has done with Four Nations, because while Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul are making a mockery of All-Star Weekend and LeBron's not playing, these guys are kicking the heck out of each other on the ice, and it's really been a great showcase, I think, for hockey. Goldie, you gotta love seeing this. Why is the game of hockey this way, where it looks like it's stuffing the NBA into a locker right now because of how much passion they're showing for their game?
Well, the NBA All-Star Game is an exhibition, and these are not exhibitions. I mean, these are guys, because they haven't gone to the Olympics twice. A lot of these players have never, as a professional, gotten to wear their country's jersey. Alexander Barkov played a world championship in 2016 for Finland. He hasn't played for Finland since. So it's a whole different ball game. Then you throw in, as Dad Keith called his two boys, Matthew and Brady Tkachuk, lunatics, and the fights right off the face-off. It was just epic, and the United States went out there that first game against Canada, before the championship game, and they beat them. So it was great because, this thing happens. It's a stroke of genius where the NHL was, totally intentional or not. It's right after football season ends, and it's during the dog days of the NBA and the All-Star break. No one was even at spring training yet. The NHL had this open canvas, and they knocked this thing out of the park. The ratings were unbelievable.
Bravo for the NHL to do that. You came off of a Pro Bowl that I don't even know how that game played, for the flag football and doing all this other stuff.
Johnny Smith was doing trivia.
And then you got the dunk contest in the NBA where you got D-League players that are playing on that. And I'm sure the Major League Baseball All-Star Game isn't going to be very good moving forward. At least it's a game. But this brought in, the nationalism, and these guys are playing for a lot of pride. In that first game, U.S. and Canada, I saw the game before. I think it was Sweden and
Canada. The first game was amazing,
which was an amazing game. And then all of a sudden, you get Canada and the United States together, and like that, 9 seconds in, you got 3 fights, and you could tell those teams were playing for so much. And my gosh, how about the winners out there, the Florida Panthers? They got so many players on the ice in every game doing things. You got one of the Tkachuks battling against Sam Bennett. Whoa, don't hurt Sammy. We need him when he comes back,
Goldie, I don't know what you have to do. I need you to move mountains. Get Brady in a Panther uniform. I don't know if I'm crossing any professional line here with you, but I need to see this guy in a Panther jersey at some point.
We are lucky we have one Tkachuk. You got honestly, you get a Tkachuk, you got a great chance of success because as we know in sports, there's just not many guys left that are like these guys. They're very hard to find that are that good and do all that stuff. And, that fight Matthew Tkachuk had was with Brandon Hagel, who plays for the Lightning. And Tkachuk said as soon as he saw the starting lineups, because those two guys have been going at it for the last 2-3 years, they knew they were going to fight. And then, of course, if Brady's going to fight, he knows Sam Bennett is a willing participant. There's a reason why the Florida Panthers players like Bennett and Tkachuk were right in the middle of all this. That's why they're the Stanley Cup champs, because the Panthers, they love this stuff.
I can't imagine what the ratings are going to be like for the final game on Thursday. That's going to be out of hand. But now you've got some of those people, like, you've reached some of these, oh, geez, they're a bunch of brutes out there. They want to throw blows. Meanwhile, you get the USA coach going out there, oh, this is exactly what we want. We're going to do more of this stuff. Yeah, it's really been a breath of fresh air when it comes to these all-star type games. And I hope they keep going with this thing for forever and ever.
I have to say, too, we're all taking the victory lap, playing Freebird, all we want because of the way the U.S. played. I do want to give Canada credit. I mean, Sam Bennett stepping up into a fight and fighting his teammate's brother. Like, they're not backing down either. They're just as much. That bench was trying to rough up Brady Tkachuk. They are bringing it on their end. Every country has brought it on their end. And I think it goes back to what you said, that pride. Yeah. But I'm happy to see that it's across the board. Everyone did it. Because Bo and Goldie, I ask you this, how do you think Adam Silver's feeling right now, watching his event, watching an NBA official step in so that, I think it was Ali Force couldn't interview the guys because they decided to cheat and like it was just such a bad look. Goldie, how do you think Adam Silver feels after this weekend compared to what he saw from the NHL?
Well, like I said, it's a different dynamic because, the NHL does their all-star game. I mean, it's better than what we've seen in the NBA and the NFL, but it's not close to what they're doing. I mean, the NHL, this isn't an exhibition for these guys. This is like playoff hockey to them. But Adam Silver can't be happy that, LeBron comes and then he doesn't play. My opinion is if these guys aren't going to be into all-star weekend, then you got to do something else. Now, the NHL, they've got it right now for about the next decade because they're going back to the Olympics. They'll have World Cup-style tournaments like this one moving forward. On the odd year, they'll still have an all-star game, which at that point it'll become a novelty. But the NBA, they really need to fix this thing, and it's up to the players. They got to care enough for the best guys to go in the dunk contest. I think if they don't do it, forget about it.
I heard more NBA players during the All-Star weekend talking about how bad the basketball is. Draymond Green comes up and says, oh, this is boring basketball. All they're doing is shooting three-pointers. Half the guys aren't getting to the 60 game thing so they can get awards afterwards. So even the players are tired of what's going on and calling their own game that boring and not fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't want to rip completely on the NBA because you had the Trae Youngs, you had the Tyler Heroes allude to, kind of wanting the old style. Look, I remember a time when Kobe and D Wade were breaking each other's noses in this game. You can't tell me there wasn't a time where people didn't care, but
I think, guys, it's a different athlete. I think you don't have Kobe Bryants now in the league. What I think they really need to do is they need to have a game or a series of games and make it regional. So you go, the East Coast guys, the New York guys, the Philly guys against the LA guys and the West Coast guys, and then maybe an international team, and maybe that spurs it on a little bit because there's at least a little bit of pride in where you came from and where you grew up. Maybe that's the answer.
They got to pull the right strings here. They got to figure it out.
They go up to the parks in New York and play up there. And the chain link fences with the chains on the baskets.
That'd be fun. I would absolutely watch that. All right, guys. The Dolphins made some moves late last week. I want to break those down. Coming up next on Game Changers, Finn saying goodbye to some serious vets on that team. We'll be right back. All right, as we know, the NFL season may be over, but the NFL news rarely stops. Yes, it ended with a big game, and there was a parade,
the draft was coming
afterwards, somewhere up there in the Northeast. I think it was Philadelphia, maybe. The Dolphins cut 3 players, all veterans: Durham Smythe, Kendall Fuller, Raheem Mostert. Bo, surprised by any of these moves? I know a lot of it has to do with contracts and the salary cap and all that, but were you surprised by any of these names on the list?
I wasn't surprised by Raheem Mostert, and you could kind of see that happening earlier in the year. He's left the ball on the ground too many times, I think, even for Mike McDaniel, who's really a supporter of his, and he dropped off. And then you got Achane and these guys they're picking up the pace. So that doesn't surprise me. Durham Smythe didn't surprise me early either because I thought his season he really didn't do much this season. There's a lot of hope for him coming in the preseason. Fuller's the guy that maybe because they're not so good at there's problems at the corner. I thought maybe they would keep him for a little insurance policy, but they'll figure it out. And so I have no problem with what they've done.
Goldie, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, they had to save money. They still have more money to save. You hate to see Raheem go.
Yep.
He was 2 years ago. I mean, let's not forget this guy set the Dolphin record for touchdowns in a season. He was phenomenal, and everybody absolutely loves the guy. Now, Fuller, I thought was a real good signing, and when he played, he was very good. But, again, you cannot have this on this team where guys are only playing 11, 12 games out of 17.
Yeah.
Now they've got to go out unless – guys, they're relying on Cam Smith, which I think may be a mistake, to step in there as a starter. You got guys like Storm Duck. You assume they're going to hang on a Cater Kohu, but they got to go out and fill that cornerback position, and they don't have a lot of money to do it. And then when you go to Smythe, handwriting on the wall, you got Jonnu Smith had the great year, and even Julian Hill early in the season surpassed Durham Smythe. But this is what you get. They were over the cap. Yep. They had to get rid of some guys. It saves them a little bit of money. There's still more money to be saved. Maybe they do that with restructure as opposed to cutting guys, but really not a big surprise. And out of all these three, my hope is next year, because I was disappointed in what happened this year with rookie Jalen Wright at running back. I thought by the end of the season, there'd be some type of package in there where he would really be explosive in this Mike McDaniel offense, and we did not see that. And maybe they think Jalen Wright, along with Achane, has a lot more to give, and that's part of the move.
Well, I think part of that reason is because Achane, he developed more as a pass receiver, became a big part of the passing game and the running game. You get the 2-for-1. But I'm with you, Jalen Wright. I think he's got to play a bigger role, and I think he will going into this season.
I don't know what was going on there too, because there was times where every time it seemed like he touched the ball, he was breaking off some big tough runs. So that was a little bit weird. But I am starting to get worried about this defense now, because obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Jordan Poyer, but now, Javon Holland, there was a report from the NFL Network, they're not going to franchise tag him. So the writing was also kind of on the wall there that they would let him test free agency.
You got Chubb, you don't know what's with Chubb, you don't know what's Jalen Phillips.
This defense, I have no expectations for this defense next year, Bo, because I don't know who's going to be out there.
Well, and look, you can't conjecture. You can. I'm surprised they're already doing mock drafts, which is ridiculous. But they're all doing that, and you're trying to. And people are going, well, how many games do you think they're? You don't even know who's going to be on the damn team. They want to know how many games you're going to win. But they've got to find a way to really work on that defense. But look, they're not set on the offense. They got some problems up front that they've got to deal with. So it's going to be up to Chris Greer and the staff there to find out something. And look, I'm usually not concerned with the salary cap, because I've seen teams move money around and do so many things and do it. So I don't really, that doesn't really bother me.
Sure.
What bothers me is if you're going to move those things around, you better find the right parts.
Yeah.
Much like Philadelphia's done, much like Washington's done, teams like that have made big bounces over the last couple of years.
Well, I'll tell you this is the year that they desperately need they got 10 draft picks.
Yep.
You're going to need contribute. You can't have the Eric Ezekamas and the Cam Smiths and the Channing Tindalls taking 2-3 years and seeing if they can even contribute.
Yeah.
They got 10 picks. They don't have a lot of money. They'll get under, as you guys said. They can restructure, Bradley Chubb, whatever it is. But they're going to have to hit on these rookies. These guys, like the Eagles had with a couple of players, they're going to have to walk in here on day one and be able to play.
And much like last year, they're going to have to hit on some of these rookie free agents. To come in and contribute.
And they've been good at that.
Yeah, they've been good at that,
The Storm Ducks of the world going to have to take that next step.
Kohu.
Cater Kohu. Storm Duck. Okay. All right. Still to come on Game Changers. We're not done talking about the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill made his way into the news again this week. We'll talk about a big race he's got coming up next. All right, guys, let's wrap things up here on Game Changers. Goldie, we got a Noah Lyles, Tyreek Hill race. Finally, they've been going back and forth on social media since the Olympics, I believe. Are you excited to see Tyreek Hill race Noah Lyles?
I'm excited about the whole thing. Tyreek Hill is doing this big apology tour. He's back. Tyreek is back. Forget about taking yourself off the field. Forget about I want out. Forget about all that.
Turn the page.
He's back. He apologized. He's turned the page. He's back to being himself.
Change the narrative.
He wants to race guys.
Yeah.
That said, the Dolphins have not said they're definitely not going to trade him, so we'll see what happens. But I'm curious on the race. Sure, why not?
I like the idea of the race, but the way things usually go for the Dolphins, I don't know if he's going to run 60 yards. I don't know if they're going to run 40 yards. And I give Tyreek a chance against Noah Lyles because he's running on grass. Put him on a track and let's see how he goes there. You know what concerns me? And this is something what concerns me. He's going to get about 30 yards out and pop a hamstring, and he's out for the first 3 months of the season.
Right. That would be the most Dolphin.
That would be the most Dolphin thing that could happen.
Yep.
In a deal like that.
I do like these made for pay-per-view events, just the sideshow, the spectacle of all of it. The Mike Tyson against the Paul brothers. I like this stuff. It's fun. It fills
Bobby Riggs, Billie Jean King.
It fills the void. Right. Sure. Okay, now you know what's going to happen, right? Now Billie Jean King's going to be in the news or something coming up. What's that?
He predicted it again. Now it's going to be like Bullygate.
I'm a soothsayer.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna end this before he brings up any old stories and all this. Oh, by the way, real quick, I do want to ask you guys before we left. Apparently, there's an astoid that's gonna hit in a couple of years. Anyone concerned?
Yeah. A couple of years?
Yeah. 6 years. 7 years.
No, I'm not gonna.
We've got about 180 episodes of Game Changers left before it all goes.
He knows how many checks he's got coming.
Believe me. He's got a grid in his room in his office, knowing exactly where it is.
And he's got another one where that asteroid's going to hit.
One falls off, and he's got, I can pull this one here, move it right over there.
Can I stay at your house if it hits near?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll do it. That's Game Changers.
You guys won't even buy Panther season tickets together. You think he'd let you stay with him, Cunha? Come on.
An asteroid's going to hit us before I get Panther season tickets with this guy. What do you know? Game Changers will be back next week. Thanks for watching.